We learned it last week.
Yep. It's good that you're reading. Yeah, I just want to wrap it up.
Right, okay. Everybody have done worse.
Nicely said it was.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל מדברי. The Imre Yosher, Remeir Arik, was considered one of very big poskim in the generation between First and Second World War. Remeir Arik was a Rav in various cities in Poland, starting from 1885. He passed away in 1926. The Meir Arik was considered one of the sharpest tools in the shed. The Meir Arik wrote many Sforim, Kalas Chuvadis and Meriyosha, Minchas Pitim, and other Sforim. He was a very staunch chassid of the first Chartek of Rebbe. Before he passed away, he said, if I ever had a difficult Tosfos I couldn't understand, I would go to see the Chartek of Rebbe. If I looked at his eyes,
You get that.
I right away got the answer.
What's that meaning?
Huh?
What's the meaning?
He looked in his eyes, he got the answer to Tosfos.
So when he looked in his eyes, I mean, the Rebbe, he know already what he wants.
I don't know.
Yeah, so that's why
He looked in his eyes, and once the family told him he's not feeling well, he wanted to go to see the Rebbe. They said maybe he should wait a little bit. He feels better. He said, you know how a Yid feels on the Ila and Yom Kippur. When I sit by the Tish of my Rebbe and I'm having kugel at the table by my Rebbe, I feel more than I feel Yom Kippur by Neila. So there was once the Sof Yomas, it was a Rav in Tarna, and there was a machloikis in the town. In the city there was a big machloikis, and he tried to make shalom between the sides. There was a machloikis in the city, so he called a group of balabatim and asked them to get involved to make shalom in this machloikis. So they told him, no, sorry, we want to be neutral. We don't want to get involved. We want to stay neutral. Rabbi, we want to stay neutral. He said, now I understand something. The Gemara says that when Yidden went in Mitzrayim, L'chobnei Yisrael, Lo yechretz kelev l'shaynai. So but why? Why are you calling them klovim? They were nice guys. He said, no, let me explain to you how it worked. So now I understand. But the Gemara says in Baba Kama, klovim boichim malachamavas boyir. Klovim esachim aliyonovi boyir. So now that Leonovi is in the ear because he's coming to tell the Yidden there's a Geula, but there's also Malachamavas in the city. It's Makas Bachoris. So the Klovim didn't know what to do. Would they be Mesachim or Boichim? So they decided to be quiet. They're neutral. That's why they're a dog. A dog is neutral. Klavim, they're neutral. Okay, anyway, the Remeir Arik, as I mentioned, it was one of the sharpest tools in the shed. He was considered one of the strongest poskim in that generation. And the Remeir Arik, we know, was a very strong follower of the psukim of the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, him, the Sochet Shover, the Avnei Nezer, who said that the two sharpest minds he ever knew was his Rebbe, his father-in-law, the Kotzker Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe. So there's a tshuva in the Imre Yosher, in the second Chelek, in Simanum Test. A Rav writes to him, a Rav in a city. The name of the city is Slatvina. It's a tshuva tzerem Nochem Uri Gelis Avbezen the Kehila Slatvina. And what happened was that this is probably in the aftermath of the First World War, and the Russians had plundered a lot of Jewish communities. And now, when the Russians were defeated, so whoever it was, the Austrians took stuff away from them, and among them, here was a wagon full of Svarim, Gemara, Poiskim, Jewish books, Svarim, and the Austrians decided that they're going to shred it. They're going to give it to a shop that will shred the paper and recycle it to make it into new paper. So this community that found out about it, they put together money and they bought all these Svarim. Nice? Yeah, the Danotzach. They redeemed the Svarim. So I told you, it's a hemcheck from last week. Last week was Teves, the Danotzach. So they bought the Svarim. Now the question was, do they own it? I mean, they opened the books. There's names. It's written on the book. So they know where the books came from. Do they own the Svarim, or do they have to give it back to the Svarim? Okay. So this is
after World War II, where they found books. Right? The Germans had,
But they redeem it. They pay money for it.
no, the Germans redeemed it, yes, all right, in World War II.
uh-huh.
All right, and I don't know if you know the story, but the American Army found a whole depot in Bavaria with Jewish documents, and they had to find the rightful owners. Instead, they gave it to Yeshiva in New York. Instead of storing it or leaving it, they gave it to a Jewish organization. But
After the First War or Second World War?
after the Second World War,
Give me the cake.
Germans actually went around and built
Yeah,
a ghetto
they
and they carved the ghetto, and they hired you to go through books and documents to see which was worth saving or not. And so some was hidden away. And the whole story started. And the Germans took it to depot in southern Bavaria and stopped it.
right?
And they didn't know what to do with this. They hired, they brought a Jewish colonel who decided that white people should be in New York instead of Yeshiva. But if you go to Yeshiva, you open up some of the book, you'll see Rabbi so-and-so, the synagogue in Vilna.
Very nice. So this was a similar question. So first, the Rav wanted to say that this is a concept of matzal metzuta shel yam. The din is in the Gemara that if something is floating in the ocean, even if it has a simon, it belongs to you. Whoever takes it belongs to them. Mordechai said a story about a city that was fire going, then the fire was catching from house to house. Everyone ran out of the city. And in one house, as a person was running out, he saw in his neighbor there was a few svarim. So he grabbed the svarim. The Mordechai says that those svarim are hefkin, because it was for sure yush. No, because it was yush. It was 100% yush. It's the mat. He gave up.
Because there was all
Yeah.
fire would have been struck,
Yeah.
so there were you will or at that point in time they'll retroactively already have that.
Are you saying that if somebody wants
Let me finish saying. I didn't say anything yet. I got to say, to be able to ask a question, I have to say something. So, good morning. Yeah.
And can you just go back into what you said about the if you
I didn't say anything yet.
dog,
If I get a chance to say something,
about a dog, if you
I have to say something. So, again, the question was about the Svarim. So, there's two main akudas in his tshuva, and in the beginning, and one is that he says that there is, even though the din is, the Shach says, not the way we spoke about last week, the Shach holds that whenever a goy steals something, I don't care if it's a gneva or gzela, a yid is never miyayish. A yid is never miyayish when a goy steals. Why? Because he thinks that the goyim will return it to him. It'll be very easy to get it back. So he said, but that's the only but here is different. He said, what's going to happen? The Russian soldiers stole a lot of goods in the time of the war. So what are you going to do? You're going to go to the Russian court and tell them that the Russian soldiers stole something? It's the first lachem for this. People are scared. They're scared to go complain against the Russian army. So even though usually the din is by a goy that there is no yush. If a goy is ganav or gazlan, we're not miyayish. You say, oh, the goyish courts, it's very easy. If a Jew steals something, we have to go to Jewish court. And a Jewish court, it's very hard to get it out of his hand. It's in his pocket. How am I going to get it out of his pocket? But a goyish court, it'll be easy to get it out of his hand. So Yid is not miyayish. But here, which court am I going to go to? The Russian court? Where? To Mr. Putin's court? Where am I going to go? So nothing changed. So therefore, he says, but the thing is, with Svarim, there's a mitzvah to buy Svarim from the Goyim. So therefore, usually the Goyim are not gonna are gonna sell it. So the person are not miyayish because they know other Jews are gonna buy it. He says, but he says it's the Kifia Nishma. A lot of the soldiers were burning the books. So he says we have to find out if most of the Russian soldiers were burning the books and using it as firewood. So any Jew that the Russians came and took away his books, so he was right away miyayish because he knows that the Russians are RIshon, and therefore they're for sure going to burn it. He says, but we have to find out. Go ask the Anshe Galicia what's the regilus. He says, now what happens if the Russians were not burning the books? What happens if the Russians were not burning the books? So he says like this. On the one hand, the fact that people's names are in the books, that's not a simon. Why? Because especially those days, people would sell tzvarim, second hand, third hand. So the fact that someone's name is on a book doesn't mean it belongs to him. Because it could be it once belonged to him. But then he says, yes, and not a simon, he has a big chidush. That yes, and not a simon is only a difference, lagabi mitzia. Lagabi mitzia, we find, there's a question, is there a simon, not a simon? But we never find lagabi gneva. I didn't get into yet the text that I put. Well, 1 second. Lagabi gneva, we never see in the Gemara should ask simon, not a simon. And he says, chidush. He says that in the name of the Mukhi Yosef, I couldn't find that in the Mukhi Yosef. I looked in that in the Mukhi Yosef, he quotes, so I don't find it there. That if it was the Mukhi Yosef, it would be steel, it would be eisen a thing. He says that there's no such thing as simon, not simon, by something that's stolen. Why? Because if I lose something, if I have a simon, I think I'm going to get it back. If I don't have a simon, I don't think I'm going to get it back. But if it's Geneva, there's a coil. So I'm not, even if I don't have a simon, maybe I'll have Adim, there'll be a coil, there'll be a bit. So I'm not miyayish. So then he comes to his big chidush. So he says, it could be, if the Russians were not muhzik or rogel to burn the books, so therefore there was no yush, and therefore it's like a pikadon. It still belongs to the first owner. So whoever bought it from the Russians has to return it. The question is, till the rightful owners come back, would the person say, "Look, I'm allowed to use the books until the owners. Let the owners find me. I'm here. If the original owners will find out that there's a city here, Tarnov in Galicia." And there's a city, what's the name of the city? Slatvina? Not Slavita. I got excited. It's not Slavita. Slatvina. So, backwards Slavita. So, Slavita was a printing shop, right? Brothers. Yeah, the brothers. Okay. So, let's learn the last piece over here in the Imre Yosher, which I typed up over here in the book, in this page. Hine, B'shaylas Tshuvas Imre Yoshet, Kosa, B'dvar Inyan Asvarim Shekorim Anshe Chel Shalonu, Asher Him Lokchum Yad HaRusim, Asher Shololu Yisraelim, V'asvarim Kvar Hoyim Mutuodim Liibut Chad V'Shalom, Adi Anshe Chel, Ki Rotza L'chatkum L'chatichas Dakis V'lasam Em Nayer. They wanted to pulverize it. They wanted to take the wagon of books, Svarim, and pulverize it, and turn it into newspaper. So now, at the end of the tshuva, so as I said, two things. Number one, he says, depends. If they were always burning it, it was yush, and it belongs to you. They were not always burning it, so it's not yush. And I don't care if it has a simon, it doesn't have a simon, it doesn't belong to you. Now, how about maybe the koine should be able to use it until the original owners come? Let's read it. So that's Talya beplukvet the poiskim leinyan dove shein by simen be you shalom edas and muter lishtamish. It's there's a machloike, something a dove shein by simen, and therefore there's you shalom edas. So there's a machloike is a poiskim, and if you're allowed to use it, the lashach muter. V'shulchan aruch harav zal hilchas metzias beis hevi aplukte pasuk the also lishtamish I'm you sham. ואפשר דבניתן דדן דנוסן דומה. וגם עושה מצווה דלא יבוא אלא דהפסד, ודאי מותר להשתמש בו. He did a mitzvah that he redeemed the Svarim. Hey Teves, he redeemed the Svarim. V'ayin yeredeh simer eish pei aleph, the din is bekono sefer Torah megoyim im yedua shesholelu mi-Yisrael muter likres boi v'talina shumehem. Norach says if you buy a sefer Torah from a goy, you think if a goy might have wrote, so you have to burn that sefer Torah. But if you know, if a goy wrote the sefer Torah, you have to burn it. But if you know that he stole it from a Jew, then you're allowed to use it. 1 second, why are you allowed to use it? Rakasha, the Svarim lo have a Yush, when it actually liked about to my bemot Svarim, then it actually liked like Pamachas l'shloshim yom, kemavur b'chashemish v'tzimeresh chavzayin. And now, according to my Chiddush, Yeshloimar, the Nos and Domim shiny, because he paid for it, and he did a mitzvah to redeem it. So over here, everyone will agree that he's allowed to use these Svarim. So, what his big Chiddush is, that I don't know if you really owned it or not. Depends. The Russians are usually burning the books and not burning the books. So I'm not sure. But bottom line is, until the rightful owners come, you could use the books. And the fact that the books have names and telephone numbers, you don't have to go call them, because the name and telephone number means nothing. There was no telephone numbers, by the way. It's the First World War. But there was text. There was only text and email address. Huh? Yeah, but the Bailam have to come. I'm not going to be machines. He has a little bit of a shaklatayat. He has to be machines. And not, I don't want to get into that today. But this is the main chiddush that he has, that the Shach says that a dova she'ein bei siman, if something has no siman, it's a bicycle, just a plane by a brand new bicycle, and it was sitting on the floor. So if I took it, the Shach says I'm allowed to use it, and the Shulchan Aruch says I'm not allowed to use it. I want to read it quickly in Shulchan Aruch. 1 second. The Shulchan Aruch says Mereish Samach Siftes. Kol hamoitze aved ben sheyesh bo siman ben she'ein bo siman. Imotza derech hanocha. If you find a bicycle, a brand new bicycle sitting on the corner of E17 and J, also ligaba, you're not allowed to touch it. Why? Shema ba'alecha nichu sham ad sheyachzor lo. Maybe the owner put it there. If it was b'derech nefila, that's something else. But if it's b'derech hanocha, it wasn't like thrown sloppily on the floor. It was leaned neatly on the street pole, and it's sitting there. It's also to touch it. V'ma'aver v'notlo, if I took it. Also lo lachzir l'sham. I'm not allowed to return it. V'ima yadavar she'ein by siman. If it's something that has no siman in it, he's allowed to use it. And the Ramah and the Nexif argues on the Machaber. He says it's asur. And Yemunah Chatshav writes the Shach, Arayvet Vaturi Sigal Zeh, the Yemunah Chatshav Elio, Kumush Kosav Arav. The Ramah writes that Lakamam Besif Yud Gam Arav Magid Kosher Sharambam Varaj Besvirale, the Yemunah Chatshav Elio, Vetama Poiske Manalhu. The Hava Yu Shalom Medas Kmavur Barava Magid. Ulafian is Daiti Enkan Shuma Sogal Arabam. Hadarabba Pshat Lishna the Shaz, the Loy Yachze. When the Gemara says don't return it, mashma shehu shaloi, it means I don't return it. It belongs to me. Imloi can have a little frusha. Otherwise, it should have said befedish yemunach ache yave elio. I don't understand it. You lo yachza means I don't return it to the corner of E17 and J. Not lo yachza doesn't mean that I should keep it. The Gemara should have said it is shaloi. It's a funny. And then the Shach continues. Afagav davi yu shaloi medas makom makom enzer al nichat yave elio. Even sheni doya nami yachza. Yochalasas by Kamashirtza. Oh, the Kaimel Yishalem Das Levi Yush could look among some Samach base of Kimmel. I know dim this Baro shall miu Zorich Lachzir. Well, I'm in and Kivin Shanisya Zochaba. And the Kozman shall this Baro shall miu Yochel Zel Lasas by Ma Shirtza. The Efshagam Kavonas, Habes Yosef Akesef Mishna came the issue of Das Arambam. Elo the Lashona Ktsas Megumga. So I just want to explain what I think the Shach is saying. There is 7 things that we paskin like Abaya against Rav, and the whole Shas, Abaya and Rav argue over 300 times, and always the halach is like Rav. Besides Yal Kigam, Yal Kigam, Yal Kigam. What's the first in Yal Kigam is Yush. Yush Shalom Medas. What's Yush Shalom Medas? The Chassidim said that if a Jew is Meyayish, it's Shalom Medas. That's the dumbest thing a person could ever do is to be miyayish. En yush bo'olam klal. There's no yush.
Listen.
There's no yush. What does it mean, yush shalom nedas? If a person loses something and there is no simon. Listen, let me explain. A person loses something and there is no simon. There's a bicycle, a brand new bicycle, a brand new scooter. And I didn't rip my name in it. There's no scratches in it. There's nothing to show that this is different from the other 10,000 pieces that came off the assembly line. So now, when I will realize that I don't have this thing, when I will realize, I'm going to say, oi, forget about it. I'm never going to get that bicycle back. How am I ever going to get it back? My name is not printed on it. I have no way to prove it belongs to me. So forget about it. If I'll find out. But before I found out, I didn't find out yet. Now, when it comes to money, the Gemara says, if you see $100 bill on the corner of E17 and J, it belongs to you. Why? Because we say the nature of people is that every 15 minutes they look in their wallet. Every 15 minutes a man counts his money. That's what the Gemara says. Every 15 minutes a man counts his money. No, not everybody, not every 15 minutes, sometimes every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes. A man is always counting his money. So when you see that $100 bill, you could safely assume that a minute before you saw that $100, the owner of the $100 bill already counted. Say, hey, I had $1,000. Do I have now $900? What happened? Maybe when I put my hand in my pocket, $100 bill fell out. I'm such a yukul. Forget about it. I'm never getting back that $100. How am I going to prove that $100 belongs to me? So now, when I see that $100 bill on the floor, I'm allowed to take it. That's the din. But if it was an object, it was a bicycle. So if we know for sure that the owner already said, I lost it. So then it belongs to you. But you don't know. It's you shalom midas. It's you shalom midas means we don't know. It was not yet in his mind. He gave up. If he was a rich man, if he knew about it, he would have given up. But as of now, you don't know if he knows or not. We don't know if he knows or not. So therefore, it's not yush. Rabbi says it is yush. So I think what the Shach is saying is that we don't want to make the machloikis very far. We want to say that even Abaya didn't mean that it's mamish not yush. It's only not yush that you have to return it to the original owner. But until you find the original owner, you're allowed to use it. It's a very big kiddush. It's not the way. But that's the chiddush of the Shach, and then he brings another pshat. He says that
the big chiddush of the Shach. כל מי שעושה בעניין אבידה, כל מי שעושה יעשה ויאכל. אינו עושה ואוכל ימכר עד שימום עליו. וייתן לו את הדמים. אם כן, מה החידוש של השאר?
That's things that are like cows. That's a cow. That's not talking about objects, which is Yimuna Chachiov Liyo, which the Gemara says at least a dozen times. Let's. לא, זה לא היה כספרי, לא, לא היה אכילה, זה היה יחידים, זה לא היה אכילה, זה לא היה. אבל מה שכוסו בסמס, קוטן מבייז ספיד לרמב"ם, כיוון דבשוש שנוטלה, דייטה להחזר לבעולה ולשיטור בזה, שלא יהיה ביודע להחזיר, כיוון שאין בסימן ספיד לזה, כיוון דכול העלמה מוידם דיחזיר, כהנו המויצה לעצמה, כאן לשוינה. The Smith says that the Rambam was talking, that the guy picked it up and he wanted to return it to his owners. And he didn't realize that it's also to pick up. So therefore, this is a unique case. He's allowed to keep it. Ain't need a klal. The hechir miza the mighty dafke shenot la daita lachzir leboilu. Doid machilu kiyesh sof sof bisuda also liyoda v'tamed diyu shalom edas levi yishu kivin jisuda ba liyoda. The Alter Rebbe writes in the halacha. Let's read it quickly. Hilchos Metzia v'kodin on siv beis. לכתחילה דברי הכל עוצם מן התורה לסקאבן ליסקס בו לעצמי קודם שנסיעה שו בעלם אפילו מודו שאין בסימן שמבעד המסיעה שמנם הבעלם כשנוידלו בהם. If there's a bicycle in the corner of E17 and J and it doesn't have a simon, I'm not allowed to touch רק שעכשיו עדיין לא נוידלם כלל שנופל and it's a צורך ליטלה על דס להחזיר למי שסבר שבעולו והפיידם if it's there בדרך נפילה ואף אם נוטל סתם, כל שלא נסקם על הגויזה, לסקוי לו עצמא, זה נעשה פיקוד נצלה לדברי הכל, והאמת ברישוס לבעולה, ואין יועץ שוב מרישוסם, ביוש שמסיעה שנחקה, כשנוידע להם, לקח צורך להחזיר להם כשנשבר השעור שלהם, על פי עדים שראש נפלו מאיש זה. Even if there's no simon, if there's going to be Adam that are going to come and tell me that they saw that this person 9 o'clock in the morning left a bicycle in the corner of E17 and J, and I got there 9:30, I'm going to have to return it to him. He's allowed to use it. That's the shach. The Yeshiva also l'shtamish bo, v'loy l'machker, shenim shuz v'loy yemedes. Ad sheyav Elio, im efshel levar dove kaybi asan be'edim. V'loy edim loyitn l'shum adam shem shliu. Kishem yav achkech balav yav edim. V'divrei iker la'achmir b'shel Torah. V'gam heim harabim. Now the Rebbe paskins against the shach. He says most of the Rishonim are against the shach. And you have to be machmir b'shel Torah. Someone asked the question last week, what do you mean? I can say timli. Timli is when there's a dispute between me and you, and the question is, and the object is in my pocket. I say it belongs to me, and you say it belongs to you, and I can no. Listen, I go to the bezin and say, look, you see the shach? I go like the shach. The shach is my guy. Mm-hmm. So don't tell me you're going to take this out of the watch out of my pocket. It's written here. But when a person has a question, he's allowed to use an aveda. The Torah, besides a money question, there's another question. The Torah says, you have to return it to your friend. So now I have a suffix deiraisa. Is this piece a piece of pork or is it kosher? If I have a suffix, if it's pork or kosher, am I allowed to eat it? No. It's the same thing here. I have a shaila. If the Torah said hoshif teshivim lachicha, or the Torah said I'm allowed to use it. So the Alter Rebbe says it's what do you mean? It's a suffix deiraisa. It's a suffix deiraisa. You're not allowed to use it. So therefore, I want to summarize here. There's a few points. Number one, mihu zev ve'ezehu that's going to argue with the Alter Rebbe. Mihu zev ve'ezehu that's going to argue with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe said that the halacha is the halacha shach, and therefore you're not allowed to use it. So you're not allowed to use it. So therefore, this woman that found the menorah is not allowed to use it. Now, the Meir Adik said that by the Svarim that you could rely on the shach. So I think that the Meir Adik made a mistake. I don't know. Let me explain to you my thought. I think it's a toast. I think the shach would also agree in the case of the Svarim and the menorah that you're not allowed to use it. Why? The shach was talking about a person that picked up a bike at 11 o'clock in the corner of E17 and J. And there was no simon. So when I picked up the bicycle, at that point there was already yush. But the guy, if he would have known, he would have said, "Forget about it. I'm never getting it back." But the question is, did he know? Did he not know? But in this case of the Svarim, or in the case of this lady with the menorah, when the menorah came to her hand, there was no yush. There was no yush. The guy that we went through it last week for many reasons. There was no yush. First of all, the shach says whenever a goy is theft from a goy, there is zero yush. Even the Ramah that argues and says there is yush could be today when there's cameras. So also by a ganav there's no yush. What's the difference of a ganav and a gazlan? Because you know his identity. Today there's cameras. And you don't know if the guy has a camera, but half the houses do have cameras. So how can you assume? There's anyway. We said last week the minhag today is to return even miyush shin rishus. Never mind. Even the shach I think would agree over here. The shach was talking about a bicycle in the corner that has no simon. So I picked it up. At that point, it was already used shalom edas. But in this case, when the Schwarzer gave the menorah, the silver menorah, 40 years ago, when he saw her in Lakewood, and he put the menorah in her hand, at that moment, there was no yush. We could assume that 40 years later, the owner probably was meyayish. We could say such a svara. So 40 years, a very long time. We could say it was meyayish. But when she got it in her hand, it was no yush yet. So why would you say that the shach would hold that she's allowed to use it? The shach only spoke about in the case when a person picked it up, and at that moment that he picked it up, there was already you shalom medas. So Rava says it belongs to me altogether. Abaye says no, it belongs to me 50%. I'm allowed to use it, but I still have to return it if the rightful owner will come and bring Adam that it came from him. But in this case of the menorah, you hear what I'm saying? It's a very different case. The menorah, when she got it in her hand, the Schwarze gave her the silver menorah. There was no yush. 40 years later, now it became, but when it came into her hand, she had a chiyuv hoshev teshivim lachicha. And why should it be mutter for her now to start using it? To me, I don't think the Shach would agree with that. No.
Let's say they redeem something. That person has to pay me back the money. Over here, this guy's never coming back for a strong paper.
No, that's a separate shayla. Whenever they'll come, that's another shayla. If they come for the svarim, if you have to return it, they'll still have to pay. Takonas shuk. You're going to have to pay for it.
It's like a pidyon shurim then.
Yeah, no, but that's anyway takonas shuk. They have to. It's takonas shuk. It's takonas shas.
So maybe someone said you could use it while the guy.
No, why should you say that? Takonas shuk is he wants to bring a raya because the Shulchan Aruch says in Yoda Deya that the Jews that redeemed the Sefer Torah from the Goyim, he wants to say, you see, that the Shulchan Aruch says. But there with Torah is a different thing. The question is it a kosher Torah or a apostle Torah? Should I burn it or am I allowed to use it? But you see, you're allowed to use it. Why are you allowed to use it? I don't understand his raya. Maybe we're talking about once in 30 days when you're supposed to roll it out. And maybe I have a different answer. I could give you half a dozen answers. I'll give you another answer. The Goyim, when they find books from Shas, they have nothing to do with it. So they'll burn it or they'll pulverize it and make it into paper. The Bible, the Goyim know what a Bible is. The Bible, you can bring it up. It's a Bible. So it's a very big difference. Over there is talking about Goyim that stole a Sefer Torah. And here we're talking about Sefer Kodesh. And then the Shulchan Aruch and Yoda Day is a different thing. The question is this a kosher Torah or apostle Torah? So he's saying if they stole it from the Jews, it's a kosher Torah. We didn't go into the details about now you're allowed to use it. There could be circumstances where you're allowed to use it. Whatever, go learn Choshe Mishpat. Now we're in Yoda Day. The question is a kosher Torah, apostle Torah? How could the Meir Arik bring an eye from there that any book I buy from a guy, that because I did a good thing, I did a mitzvah. Remember this guy, Country Yossi? He used to have, I did a mitzvah. What's a mitzvah? Kiss the bubby, you did a mitzvah. Kiss the bubby. Kiss the bubby, you did a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, kiss the bubby. But it doesn't mean that because I kissed the bubby, that I have ganz the ganze Olam Haba. Just because he did a good thing and he bought the books from the Russians or from the Austrian Goyim, but the laws of Choshe Mishpat don't get suspended because of that. If you're going to say that when the Russians,
Do I have a key to buy that? Let's say I don't want.
I have a chiv to buy. I have a chiv to buy. It shouldn't be. I have a chiv to buy. That's just a simon. Choshe Mishpat Semeresh Lamed Vav. That's the Mordechai said. I have a chiv to redeem it. But still, who says that I'm allowed to use it now?
Right.
Who says I'm allowed to use it? Would be I have Yemunah Chatshayav Elio. And maybe Svarim is different, but for sure Lagabe the Menorah, this is our case today. She didn't pay anything for it. And I think this is very different in the case of the Shach. The Shach was talking about you Shalom Adas. I walked out and I see a bicycle sitting there. I shouldn't have picked it up. Or B'derech Nafila, what's the difference? And it has no simon. And I picked it up, so it was you Shalom Adas. So Abaye says you have to return it. The Shach has a chiddush to say, I have to return it if I find the rightful owner, but I can still use it now. But here, there was no yush. When the Shvatza gave this woman the silver menorah in the hand, there was no yush. Yeah.
No, if you find something in the street, you could call the police. Police will take it, give you a receipt. If they can't find the rightful owner, let's say X amount of time, it's yours.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's the law.
Yeah, that's the law, yeah.
That's the law.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know exactly what the time is.
but we can't go with the secular law. We have to go with the laws of the
Right.
Choshe Mishpat. Yeah, I understand.
I found, I don't know, $10 at the airport.
But then
And I recorded, got a receipt, and I don't know,
Uh-huh.
later, this money, nobody claimed it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe somebody had lost money, whatever.
But according to Choshe Mishpat, that you have there's no Indian of giving it to the police. You're supposed to put it in your pocket
Why?
and have a nice day.
Because if you gave it to the police back in those days, the cop kept it.
Right.
All right, they didn't return it.
Aber
to anybody else.
Rabbi,
Huh?
in meantime, we can use it, the books.
He says, I disagree. I say you can't use the
But
book.
why not?
Because at the time when they stole it, there was no use, so it belongs to the original bylaw. I'll answer. It's a good question. One second, I want to finish this question.
Getting back to what I said about
Yeah.
the books. All right. German took Jewish libraries, private libraries of rabbis, of synagogues, of community. You had Jewish libraries in Vilna, called people used to borrow books. They took, a group of Jews, who linguists, scholars, sorted through the books, tell us what's important, and the Germans actually transported it to Bavaria. And then after the war, the American Army found it, sent it to 1947, sent it to the Evo archives in New York.
Yeah.
I want to look at two books written by, Rabbi. I had two copies. One was from a synagogue in Vilna, which no longer exists, of course. The other one was from a private library, so Rabbi so-and-so. Now, shouldn't his descendants get the book or relatives?
So that's a good question. That's part of the question we're dealing with. Now, it could be a little different. The Germans conquered first. They conquered the countries. They've conquered Poland. Lithuania. They conquered, right?
Yeah, they got
Lithuania specifically. When the Jews saw the Germans coming in, they already knew that these, not like the Polish Jews, which maybe didn't know. They knew a little more already. So I think there's two things. One is, I think the people that they took away the Sfarim from them were Meyadish right away. And I don't think the Jews were thinking that the Germans are going to preserve them and later sell them. That's one.
The Germans were going to
A second thing is because they burnt. They were most of the books they took, they burnt.
Yeah.
They made public spectacles of burning Jewish books.
Yes.
So I think the people were Meyayish. And the second thing is, if they first conquered the country and then a week later they took away the books, then there's another issue about Dina de Malchusa. Does the government have the right to confiscate things? They do, they don't. Draconian laws. Then it's another. But anyway, let's.
No right on international law to steal property just because you're
I have a question. Let's
Yeah.
say, so they gave up ownership right away, and so it's ownerless. Now, is there a mitzvah or trade of Hasidus, let's say 50 years later?
It's a mitzvah to buy the Sfarim. That's what he says.
Let's say you find out that the owner lives, whatever, somewhere else. Would that be an extra mitzvah
This is what we're talking about.
to the descendants? Or?
That's what we're talking about. If the first owner, when it was taken away, was not Miyayish, then it still belongs to them. It's not a mitzvah like kissing your bubby. It's an absolute obligation. If you don't return it, it's like eating a piece of pork.
We already established that it's ownerless 50 years later. Let's say.
Why did you establish its ownerless?
We just said
300 years later, it makes no difference. At the moment it was taken away from the original Jew, there was no Yush. That means it still belongs to him. And 700 years later, it belongs to his heirs. It could be 1,000 years later. Who cares?
The Germans right now.
Yeah.
The Germans right now still have a group of people sorting through stolen books,
Right.
trying to locate
Right.
the rightful owner.
So this is our question. This is the question we're dealing with. So this is the question that we're dealing with. I think, to me, it's clear that this menorah yehemunach ad sheyav elio. Now, someone asked last week that it's a mitzvah like by tefillin. If a person is happy, she also mitzvah b'mamoinah. It's a brought in Orach Chaim, it's Siman Tezvav. So, but that's very different. First of all, I said last week, but I thought about it. First of all, this is not a mitzvah. Lighting a Hanukkah candle is a mitzvah, but using a silver menorah is not a mitzvah. You could take a potato and cull out a hole in the potato and put your oil in there. It's not like a pirat film. Number one. Number two, even a pirat film, the Shulchan Aruch said that it's only if you don't have film, you go into a shul, you could safely assume that no one cares. You can use their film, but a temporary, you're not allowed to do it as a kvius because the person is makpid. Don't use my film every day. Go get yourself your own film.
Like lulav, the same thing.
Well, some synagogues have an extra pair.
Lulav is a different thing. The lulav is a different thing.
What he said about the police.
Yeah.
Now the police have a special lost and found department.
Right.
So, and this was just thinking. I'm not going to have any conclusion about it, but I'm just thinking that the owner is maybe perhaps more likely to go to the police, to the lost and found department, and have better look there than let's say just Goldberg somewhere has the Sefer Torah and you don't know where it is.
Right. And maybe it's Mekayim the mitzvah of Shabbat through that. But the problem is What are they going to do afterwards? I don't know. You have to be.
יבוא אליהו, I'm allowed to use this object?
This is what we're talking about. No, not allowed to use it. בדבר שאין בו חיסרון כיס, רק פעם אחת, או שתיים. כן, כתוב פעם אחת, שתיים, שלוש, לא יותר.
אבל גם העונש של הספרים, הוא יודע שמי שמשתמש בספר שלו, נניח שהוא יודע שזה, אבל הוא יודע שמי שמשתמש בספרים זה יהודי, בטח שהוא ייהנה מזה. הוא מפסיד.
הוא מפסיד הרבה.
מה?
כי משתמשים בזה, וזה מפסיד את הספרים. כן. אותו מקום, בסימן ט"ו באור החיים, שכתוב שמותר להשתמש בתפילין, כתוב שאסור להשתמש בספרים. אולי בזמן הזה זה קצת שונה, כי זה לא נתקלקל כל כך, ואולי אנשים לא מקפידים, אז יכול להיות. אבל in the case of the menorah, it's an expensive thing, and if you keep on using it, it can get ruined.
The menorah can get ruined.
The menorah, yeah, because the silver menorah is an expensive thing, and you use it, to get a bang, you get a thing, you get ruined. Okay. Bottom line is, I think it has to be munachat she'ov elio. It's an interesting question. Someone asked me this week that the Torah Gemach, they gave a Torah to Yeshiva, and then the Yeshiva said, "Whoops, we don't know. Someone, we lost the Torah. You know what? They have a different Torah. We're giving you the Torah. We're giving you the Torah." He took the Torah, and it was possible. It was terrible. He brought it to a Sefer. Sefer said, it'll cost about $6,000 to fix the Torah. And you want to fix the Torah? Yeah. Fix the Torah. You paid him $6,000. Okay. It's fine. He's fine. He's fine. Oh, a few months later, he gets a phone call. This is Reuven. Here you have my Sefer Torah. Here you have my Sefer Torah. So he says, yeah, I have your Sefer Torah. But I spent $6,000 on fixing it. I don't care, 6,000 or 100,000. That's my Torah. Give me back my Torah. So he asked me this week, what's the din? Now the din is a yodel l'terzvei chaveda. If you go into someone's field and you plant, if it's a soda asuya lita, then you got to pay. When the person leaves the field, you have to pay for what he did. You have to pay him for it. Now the owner could say, toilet secha v'lech. You could say, you know what? I don't want to pay for it. There is Yodel Yoni or Tatayra, depends if it's also. He said, you know what? Forget about it. You come with a truck, take your stuff, and get from that. So he could do that. That's a din. He could say, I don't want to pay for it. You come with the truck. I had a house, an abandoned house. Someone came, he put in $100,000 of improvements. Then I come and say, who are you? So I have a choice. Either I give him the money that he spent, or I tell him, you come with the truck and take it. But he really could do it. Now, here's my everything. He takes everything. And now the shaila. What if he can't do it? Sefer Torah, could the Reuven say, you know what? Give me a blade and show me every place that it was possible. Are you allowed to do that? It's also to do that. So because you can't do that, you're back to the regular din. That shaman loy, and he has to give at least the hoitzah. Says to give at least the hoitzah. So I think it's clear to me, Yosef Mekabeya Bekutcha, that the owner has to get back the Torah, but the person who spent the $6,000 could hold the Torah and say, "Look, you give me the $6,000 first, then I will give you the Torah." Now, give me whoever wants.
According to the Rambam, we could charge both, no?
Then I give you the Torah. Now, they can make there has to be discounted a little bit, and the cheshbon has to be made, because if the Torah was used for a little bit of time, it was a few months, so whatever the cheshbon, a certain cheshbon has to be made, and a pshara should be made, so maybe $5,500, maybe $5,000. A cheshbon has to be made to make, but otherwise it's a yodel l'terzvei chaveda. You can't play games. Huh?
Doesn't the Rambam say that yodel l'terzvei chaveda he could charge both? If the guy send you to somebody else's field to work, and then you work, and then
that's something else. That's when the Rambam from Friday was a worker, but that's a little different. Here's a poshta file from Siman Shin Ayin Shulchan Aruch. Yodel l'terzvei chaveda. Shaloi b'rishus. And here was not shaloi b'rishus, not so posh, it was yebishus, not b'rishus. The bottom line is, if it's something which is also rita or also lataken, you can't just tell him to go packing. Either you pay him, or you tell him to take his eitz and vavonim. But over here, you can't tell him to take his eitz and vavonim. Why should you hold the Torah hostage?
It's being used to deter, he'll owe it to you. Well, what can you say? What if
Yeah, but it's not yours. But it's yours, basically. It's yours. You got it from the Yeshiva. It's yours.
So it's a good question. It's a good question.
How could the guy prove that it's his also?
Question. There's a lot of
Maybe it's a yeshiva's.
The shaila is it's like a migui. If it's in his rishus and he doesn't have a raya, so
אבל זה שלו כבר.
okay, ייתן לו את זה.
הספר תורה הוא שלו. למה לא?
לא, אבל השאלה הוא שהוא שואל אם אני יכול להחזיק את הספר תורה, אני שילמתי 6,000. אני יכול... לא, זה לא שלו, זה היה של הבעל הבית.
הישיבה לא נתנה לי את שלי, האורגינל, נתנה לי את זה, אז זה שלי עכשיו.
לא, זה לא שלו. זה שלו, אוקיי, זה לא.
אז הישיבה תביא לי את שלי.
אוקיי, אז שהם יביאו.
אבל הם נתנו את זה במקום.
לא, זה לא.
זה שייך בעצם. זה תמיד שייך עכשיו, לישיבה או לי?
לא, זה לא שייך לך, לא לישיבה, לראובן זה שייך. השאלה היחידה, אם אני יכול להחזיק את זה כערובה עד שמביאים לי את $6,000.
How do we know that Reuben is a real owner? How do we know that Reuben is a real owner? Maybe he could say, I'm sorry, you gave a donation to the yeshiva, it's not yours anymore. He has to prove it.
I hear, it's a good question. That's what I was saying a second ago. That could be, but Lapoil, he does believe him, and he does apparently have a simon. So he could say that in order to hold it back. But Lapoil, once he's going to give him the $6,000, since the yeshiva agrees and everyone agrees, he should return it to him. There's someone that told me he has an Arab co-worker who told him his mother's Jewish, and he wants to learn about Judaism. He asked me this week. And by the Arabs, it's a mitzvah to marry a Jewish woman.
Yeah,
by us,
it's a big mitzvah.
It's a big mitzvah. By us, it's an aveda, but by them, it's a mitzvah. So his mother, he said, is Jewish.
So he's Jewish.
So that's the question. He says, my mother's Jewish, but I want to learn about. He told him his mother's Jewish. By here, he tells him, I'm very curious about Judaism, and I'd like to learn a little about Judaism. I don't want to become Jewish. I just want to learn a little bit about.
If he's already Jewish, then
Okay. Abaya. Kosa behilchas Talmud Torah ladmeira zoken. Ein malamdim Torah letalmud sheini over. Ela machzirin nois lamutav tchila. Akich machnis nois lebeis hamedrash umalamdim moise. Im hi efshar lachzir lamutav tchila. Hu doichek lekonis lalamde. Ite smoil doiche v'yimim mekareves. V'loi ki yeshuv ben parachye shedoche leploini b'shtei yadayim. That if you can make him do tshuva first and then teach him Torah. You do that, but if you can't, you shouldn't be merachikim. Because Yeshua ben Parachya was merachikim. Atazoi.
What is that? Not a good person.
Right. Okay. So. Okay. So therefore, I think, and Alter Mekutzakan says, there's a svara, the be'emesiv, even there's a suffix, he's a chayiv likonas l'beis suffix, ula yochel hachzer lamuter. So for sure, according to Tzachran, not only it's mutter, but maybe there's chayiv to teach him Torah. Because if he's going to teach him Torah,
it's talking about a Jew.
Yeah, a Jew. This guy, his mother is Jewish.
Personally, you can believe him?
So that's a good question. It's a good question. It's to say that's the other. No, he doesn't want to get married. He's not bringing him to chew. He's not bringing him in like this and say, oh, you look at my Muhammad, my good friend, he's really Jewish. He's not doing that. He's not doing that.
That's one point.
He's learning with him in the office. He wants to learn with him Chumash. He wants to learn with him. So privately.
He said his mother is Jewish.
Yeah.
How? Could it be the mother's mother is Jewish or the mother's
He'll ask him. He'll ask the question. He'll ask.
But if you go to this country,
No, because
take three
the Arabs, to them, it's a big mitzvah to marry Jewish women. So they make sure that her mother is Jewish too.
if you take no,
בארץ, הנה בארץ.
take 300 million people in this country. I'm sure if you go back 4 or 5 generations, you'll find 10% of everybody's
היסטוריה.
has somebody who's who's Jewish.
No.
It's more than large rate of Orions country.
Yeah. Maybe more so in Central America even.
West
You know,
America,
yeah.
they didn't have a large number of Jews in those days. What you'll find is they do DNA testing, they'll find out they have the descendants of
קנת
Orions.
מזכ"ל החיים גאה.
Uh-huh. You know that Elvis' great grandmother was Jewish?
כן, ככה אומרים.
אלוויס.
ככה אומרים.
Great grandmother, to find out that she's Jewish. Elvis Presley.
They thought he was a Shabbos guy.
Patrilius. We're back on the chest, right? That's some Jewish great
Brother-in-law with
grandfather,
neighbors with
something
the
like that.
Presleys.
Okay. Right.
Jewish ancestors.
Right. But there's a little difference if a person is learning himself or you're teaching it to someone. You're teaching it to someone and you know for sure he's a Talmud Chain Hogan, whatever Talmud Chain Hogan is, then it's a separate thing. Because a person to himself, he has to rely on the fact that a Moshe Bav Yachzir Lamuta. But if you're teaching it to someone else, then that's the question. Anyway, bottom line is he should teach him. Hopefully, Moshe Bav Yachzir Lamuta, and he'll become. Give him some chant. Have a great week. Tonight, everyone is invited to a special l'chaim from Gedalia Lieberman. Chaim Tzvi Lieberman is inviting everyone tonight at 8:30 in Crown Heights in the Lubavitch Yeshiva for the l'chaim. So we won't have the shir tonight.
אז היום אין שיעור. מחר 8:30?
כן. Yeah. Do we have a minion or a zimun here?
יש.
You have a zimun?
יש 10 בגלור.
כן? אז תגיד רבוי סי. You can zog רבוי סי?
כן, we have 10 even. 10, don't worry.
מה? לא, רק ביום ראשון. לא, אין לנו שחלית בשבוע. לא, אין שחלית.
Azar, that you watch, though. The daughter's son had a Jewish girl. Daughter's son had a Jewish girl.
Grandfather's son, great grandson, Roosevelt. You go back.
Yeah, Roosevelt, he converted, right? FDR's grandson. He has a grandson who converted.
Jewish.
How are they halachically Jewish?
Because he had